The missing room. I wasn't supposed to be alone. My research group had split up to survey different wings of the ruined castle. It was part of a university field program in South Bohemia. 2 weeks exploring the foundations of medieval architecture, documenting layout anomalies and construction techniques. The castle had no official name anymore. Locals just called it the Grey Keep. It stood alone in the hills, its roof caved in, vines tangled across stone like veins on decaying skin. My assigned section was the eastern wing. It was the most damaged, which probably explained why nobody else wanted it. But I liked the quiet. I liked the dark corners and the brittle sound of my own footsteps. That's when I found the blueprint. It was folded and stuffed between 2 stones in a collapsed window frame, yellowed and cracking. It looked like a floor plan, rooms marked by numbers and lines drawn in red ink. I traced it with my finger, noting the outline of the eastern wing. One room stood out, room 31. I checked my own notes. That number wasn't listed. In fact, the rooms in the eastern wing only went up to 28. At first, I assumed it was a mistake, an outdated plan. But something about the paper, its thickness, the handwriting, told me it was more recent than the rest of the building, almost modern. I decided to look for it. The layout placed room 31 between a narrow hallway and the remains of an old stairwell. When I reached that section, I found only a blank wall, crumbling stone, no doorway. I was about to give up when I noticed something. The floor, the footprints, mine. They were more than just mine. Faint scuffs in the dust led straight to the wall. Shoes, boots, some heavy, some light. All of them stopped at the same spot, where room 31 should have been. I reached out and touched the wall. It was cold, not like stone, more like metal that had sat untouched for hours in a freezer. Then something shifted. A breeze, maybe. Except there was no window nearby. A sound followed, like a click, a lock. Then the wall opened. It was seamless, like a panel sliding sideways, revealing a narrow passage just wide enough for one person. The air that poured out smelled stale, old, like books left underwater. I should have stopped there, but I stepped inside. It didn't feel like the rest of the castle. The walls were smoother, darker. There were no cobwebs, no fallen beams or graffiti, and no windows. I held up my flashlight. The beam barely cut through the dark, like the air itself swallowed light. Room 31 was larger than I expected. Square, maybe 20 feet across. At the far end, a chair sat alone in the center of the room. A simple wooden chair, facing the wall. I thought maybe someone had placed it there for effect. A prank, maybe. But there were no footsteps in the dust leading to it. None but mine. As I took a step forward, something cracked behind me. I turned. The door had vanished. No seam, no outline. Just stone again. My flashlight flickered. When it came back on, the chair was facing me. I hadn't heard it move. My throat went dry. I tried to laugh, to make myself believe it was nothing. Then I noticed something in the corner. A mirror, not an antique. A clean, square mirror nailed to the wall. The only thing in the room that looked new. I moved toward it slowly. And when I looked in, I saw the chair. Empty. Except I wasn't in the reflection. The room was there. The chair. But not me. Just the outline of something tall, hunched, standing behind where I should have been. I spun around. Nothing. But the flashlight beam wavered. The air felt heavy. Like something was breathing behind me. So close I could almost feel skin without contact. And then, the mirror began to fog. from the inside. I backed up toward the wall, heart pounding. I slammed my hand against the stone where the door had been. It wouldn't budge. Then the lights in the room, what little ambient glow remained, dimmed. Not flickered, just sank into something darker. The mirror cracked. A single fracture down the middle. And then I saw something move in the reflection. It stepped forward, out of the shadows. Not a person, not even a shape I can really describe. But it walked, slowly, toward where I stood. The moment it reached the mirror, my flashlight died. I didn't move. I couldn't. Something passed by my arm. A whisper of cold, like cloth brushing skin. But nothing touched me. When I opened my eyes again, I was outside the castle, lying on the grass, dirt under my nails, blood on my sleeve. The others said they'd searched for me for hours. They thought I'd left early. I never told them what happened. I didn't keep the blueprint. It was gone. But I remember room 31. And sometimes, when I turn a corner or look down a hallway, I feel it. That door. Still there. Waiting. The left foot. The night I first saw the foot, the dogs wouldn't stop barking. They howled like something had slithered into the village, something unseen, but felt by every living creature. I thought it was just another wild animal, maybe a hyena coming too close, or a leopard sniffing the livestock pens. But when I stepped outside, flashlight in hand, the beam caught something on the ground just before the edge of the path to my house. It was a foot, a single, severed left foot. I stood frozen, the light shaking slightly in my hand. The skin was tough, dark and mottled, calloused like it had belonged to a large animal, perhaps a wildebeest, or maybe a kudu. But it wasn't any animal I could name. It was too clean, too deliberate in the way it had been left, toes pointing directly at my door. I didn't touch it, just stared for a while. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and told myself it wasn't my problem. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. The barking eventually stopped, but I started hearing something else. Not loud, faint, distant, like the tapping of bare feet on packed earth. I sat up, listening. The sound came and went, never steady, like something pacing, but never coming closer. The next morning, the foot was gone. I would have told someone, anyone, but what would I say? A foot came to visit me? They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd nod too seriously, like they already knew what it meant. I wasn't ready for either response. I kept quiet. 2 days passed. Then old Elias died. No one was surprised. He was 83 and hadn't spoken in months. His daughter found him in his chair, still and quiet, his face more relaxed than it had been in years. No one cried. But that night, I heard the sound again. It was closer. The soft, irregular pat-pat of something walking barefoot across dry soil. I checked the windows, the doors. Nothing. No dogs barked, no wind. But I didn't sleep. The next morning, I found the foot again. Same shape, same size, same position. This time, a little closer to the door. I called my cousin Kamo, who lived a few kilometers away. I didn't mention the foot, just said I needed help with a plumbing issue, something to get him over. When he arrived, I casually pointed at the ground and asked if he saw anything unusual. He looked. He saw nothing. "It's clean," he said. "What am I looking for?" The foot was gone. Again. That evening, I walked the edge of the village, passing thorn trees and rusted wire fences. Every shadow looked too long. Every bird call felt like a warning. I kept expecting to hear it. Pat, pat. Soft and uneven. But the night was silent. Still, when I got home, I locked every door and shoved a heavy bench against the front entrance. I dreamt of feet, 100 of them, running, limping, crawling across the dry plains, all left feet. I woke up to silence. But when I opened the door, there it was. Not outside. Inside. Right on the welcome mat. I didn't scream. Just stood there and stared. The foot looked older now. Like it had dried out. The skin cracking. Almost wooden. But the nails were clean. The heel still moist. As if it had walked through something just moments before. I picked it up. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I held it, I could prove to myself it was real. It was cold, heavy, and it didn't smell of rot. Just earth. I threw it into the fire pit behind my house. It didn't burn. The flames licked it, blackened it, but never consumed it. After 2 hours, I gave up. I buried it in the dirt, 1/2 meter down. Covered it with stones. That night, I didn't sleep. At 2:14 a.m., I heard it again. Pat. Pause. Pat, pat. Pause. Inside the house. Not pacing. Not wandering. Just standing still. I waited under the blankets, heart pounding. After an hour, it stopped. The next morning, the stones in the yard had been moved. The dirt was disturbed. The foot was gone. 3 days passed. Then Daniel from the hardware store collapsed behind his counter. He wasn't sick. He wasn't old. Just dead. No signs of struggle. No marks. The doctor from the city said it was the heart. Happens sometimes. She shrugged. But I heard the sounds again that night. And the night after. Each time. A little louder. A little closer. I stopped answering the phone. Stopped going outside after dark. Neighbors came to check on me, but I told them I was tired, sick, not myself. They nodded, concerned, but polite. No one offered to stay. No one looked me in the eye. I thought of leaving, packing a bag, getting on the road, heading to Cape Town, or even farther. But the idea felt stupid, as if the thing would just follow. The foot didn't want a place. It wanted a person. Last night, I heard it again, but not walking, not pacing. It was standing in the kitchen. I knew, because I heard the spoon I'd left on the counter fall to the floor. Not crash, just drop, like it had been nudged. I didn't get up. I didn't move. I waited until morning. When the light came, I stood and walked into the kitchen. Nothing. But I saw something on the floor. A smudge. A perfect print. Left foot. I don't hear it right now. But I know it's near. I haven't heard my own footsteps all day. Not on the floor. Not on the stairs. Not when I walk. Only silence. I don't know when it'll happen. But I think I understand now. When the foot visits you, it's not coming for your life. It's coming for your steps. And once it takes them, you won't need them anymore. Handkerchief. I wasn't looking for anything special when I stepped into that tiny vintage shop in the 18th arrondissement. Paris was wet that day. One of those gray afternoons where the sky can't decide whether to drizzle or pour. I ducked in just to get out of the rain. The store was narrow and dimly lit, the scent of old fabric and dust filling the air like forgotten perfume. It was the kind of place you pass 100 times and never notice. Racks of coats, drawers full of gloves, shelves stacked with tarnished jewelry and lace. I wandered through lazily, fingers brushing textures, eyes scanning for nothing in particular. Then I saw it. A handkerchief. It was folded neatly in a glass case near the register. Pale blue, almost silver, with delicate embroidery along the edges. Tiny white roses, each one perfect. It wasn't flashy. In fact, it was easy to miss. But something about it felt untouched, as if it had waited for me. I asked the shopkeeper about it. He was an older man, nearly bald, with round glasses and a wool vest that looked as old as the merchandise. He barely glanced at the case when I pointed. "Ah, yes," he said in a quiet voice, almost distracted. "One of a kind. Not many notice it. I bought it for €10. It was still raining when I left, but lighter now, misty and soft. I walked back to my apartment on Rue de Belleville, clutching the little paper bag like it held something fragile. It was silly, I know. Just a handkerchief. But I liked the weight of it in my coat pocket. That night, I placed it on my bedside table. And that was when it started. The first time, it was subtle. I was brushing my teeth, the hum of the electric toothbrush filling the small bathroom. I looked into the mirror, as I always did, but for a moment, a fraction of a second, I saw something that shouldn't have been there. A hand, not mine. It moved across the mirror, dabbing at something unseen on its cheek, as if wiping away tears. Then it was gone. I stood still, foam clinging to my lips, staring at my reflection. Nothing out of place. No strange shadows. No lingering movement. I told myself it was stress, a trick of the light, an eyelash in my eye. The next night, it happened again. This time, I was washing my face. The bathroom steamed from the hot water, and I rubbed a towel over my cheeks, looked up, and there it was. A hand. Thin, pale, but clearly female, moving slowly, dabbing at invisible tears. The movement was fluid, deliberate, not mine. Again, it vanished before I could react. I backed away from the mirror, heart pounding. The room felt suddenly smaller, too quiet. I turned on all the lights and sat awake in the living room for hours, the handkerchief still folded neatly beside my bed. I didn't touch it. Over the next few days, I tried to forget. I stayed out longer, worked later, even slept on the couch. But every time I passed a reflective surface, mirrors, windows, even the dark screen of the television, I watched. And sometimes, I saw it again. Always the same motion. A hand, wiping tears. Never a face, never a sound. Just a slow, mournful gesture. And only in reflections. I moved the handkerchief to a drawer, then to a box, then wrapped it in cloth and shoved it under the bed. It didn't help. In fact, it got worse. One night, I woke up to the sound of dripping water. I followed it to the bathroom. The faucet was dry. The floor was dry. But the mirror was wet. Not fogged. Wet. Like something had been pressed against it. There were smears, faint fingerprints, and a single, perfect circle, like a teardrop. I cleaned it, scrubbed until the glass was clear. The next night, I saw the hand again. This time, it didn't disappear. It moved slowly, wiping, then stopped. It stayed there, still, pressed against the inside of the mirror. I stared. My reflection was gone. Only the hand. I turned away, left the room, sat in the kitchen with all the lights on until dawn. When I returned, the mirror was normal, but I didn't feel normal. I began noticing changes. The handkerchief, though hidden, never gathered dust. It always looked freshly washed, as if it had been laundered moments before. Once, I found it folded on the bed, even though I hadn't touched it in days. I tried throwing it away, but it came back, tucked neatly into the drawer beside my socks. Then came the dreams. Always the same. A woman standing in front of a mirror, weeping silently. She never turned, never spoke. But in every dream, she held the handkerchief. My handkerchief. I began to forget things. Conversations. Appointments. My friends stopped calling. My mother's voice on the phone became a blur of concern and static. I stopped answering. The apartment grew cold. Not in temperature, but in mood. The lights felt dimmer. My own reflection began to blur at the edges. Sometimes, I wasn't sure if I was looking at myself at all. One night, I covered every mirror in the apartment, every reflective surface, blankets, tape, even cardboard. I unplugged the television, turned all the frames around. For a day or two, it was quiet, peaceful. Then I walked past a window at dusk, and there she was, a figure, thin, dressed in pale blue, holding something to her face. I couldn't see her features, but I knew the handkerchief. I stayed inside after that, kept the blinds shut, stopped going to work. Food piled up in the fridge, uneaten. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think, only watched, waited. The hand returned, first in the bathroom mirror, then in the hallway, the kitchen, the black screen of my laptop. Always the same motion, slow, wiping tears, over and over and over. Last night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. Something was in the room. I couldn't see it, but the air was heavy, the way it gets before a thunderstorm. I turned my head slowly, and there it was. Not in the mirror, not in the window, but beside the bed. A shape, faint, flickering, like smoke in human form. And then, a hand reached out. It held the handkerchief. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, it was gone. But the handkerchief was in my hand, still damp. Today, I tried to return it to the shop. I walked through the rain, down the narrow street, past the same buildings. But the shop wasn't there. I searched for hours. Nothing. Just blank walls, empty spaces. No sign of the store, no sign of the man behind the counter. Just the city moving around me, indifferent. I'm home now. Every mirror is uncovered. I've stopped running. Tonight, she'll come again. I know it. And this time, I won't look away.